Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sky Career Talks, where we connect students with professionals sharing their real world experiences and career journeys. My name is Princess, and today I'm excited to be joined by Laine Klimek, who will be sharing insights into her professional path. Laine earned her bachelor's degree in communications and human resource management from Rutgers, as well as her master's degree in communication and media from Rutgers University, and is currently a senior associate at Taft Communications. Laine, thank you so much for joining us today. I know we were talking a bit before, but you were also a graduate student assistant, so it's really exciting that I got to interview you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Princess. I'm so excited to be here today. I'm so happy to have this come full circle as I was on the other side of your screen. So it's really great to be here today. But, as you mentioned, my name's Laine Klimek. I'm a senior associate at Taft Communications, a division of RF Binder. And I'm just really excited to be here today.
Perfect. So to start us off, could you please tell us a little bit more about your current role and kind of what you do on a day-to-day?
Sure. So my current role as a senior associate, I pretty much start my day media monitoring. I work in the public relations industry, so I have lots of different clients since I work at an agency. So I'll start my day with my usual to-do list outlines for each client, and then typically that's followed by the media monitoring because I find it's easiest to conduct the search in the morning when everything is new and fresh, but sometimes I have to go throughout the day. There's a lot of different meetings, a lot of back and forth. So sometimes I'll go from internal team meetings to regroup and reprioritize on some of the, client deliverables we're presenting or moving forward. And then other times I'll be jumping into client meetings, so where we're presenting to clients of progress and what we've been doing. And then in between all of that, I'm getting my work done of press releases, pitches, the monitoring, as I mentioned, research, sometimes some new business. So yeah, that's typically what my day looks like.
Wow, that seems like you have like a lot going on in a typical day. I know you mentioned like media monitoring, like client meetings. So I know you likely got a lot of preparation for that in your academic background. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about that and how that sort of prepared you for your professional career now.
Absolutely. I'm happy to talk about that as, being a little bit removed from the undergraduate and graduate program, I can look back now and say how much school and Rutgers prepared me without me even realizing it. I'll give my little shout out, as I always do, to Professor Beal, Mark Beal. He's my favorite. Taking those communication classes and building my foundation was super imperative to my career. I was learning what a media list was and what reporters were and what different types of outlets and coverages they would do. Um, and that was just like a class assignment, and I thought I would move on from that. And obviously, I knew I was interested in PR, but it became full circle when, I got my first internship or I was doing a writing test for an internship and it was, please write a pitch. And I'm thinking back to the times I wrote a pitch for his class assignments or the times that I wrote, identified three reporters. So it was really interesting to see how some of the assignments that I was doing in class came full circle to now my everyday career, which was really neat.
Wow, that's like really great. You're actually not the first person that mentioned Mark Beal, so definitely giving him a shout out because he definitely prepares students to feel prepared going into their professional careers. But I also wanted to ask, since you were previously a graduate student assistant for Career Services, what was that like experience like for you, and were there any skills in that role that continue to help you with your career now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, being the graduate assistant for Sky Career Services was awesome. I always loved the career services, so shameless plug for them as well. I found them to be so resourceful when I was a student in just asking questions about my schedule, my classes, my requirements to graduate that I really wanted to be a part of the team as well. So being on the opposite end and, doing these interviews as you are was really meaningful to me because it really expanded my Rutgers connections and like opened new doors and opportunities to people in my same industry, other industries, and sometimes completely out of my like, bandwidth or, realm. So it was really neat to be a part of it. And I think some of the skills I learned from it were the multitasking of it, because I know in the graduate assistant role, it's not only these career service these career conversation videos, it's identifying job opportunities, promotion of some events. And so that kind of translated a little bit to some of the work that I do now of promotion of events, how to create a flyer, how to be a little bit more engaging, and then also doing research of jobs for potential students also is similar to research for clients. I was able to think strategically and sort of go the extra mile and try and get deeper to find new opportunities, which correlate to new ideas for clients, which I found really interesting.
Yeah, that's really great. I definitely agree. Like, I feel like this role really prepares you to have that more like communications-based mindset and just like be more aware of like what's available to you because of how much exposure you're getting from the role. So I'm definitely grateful for this opportunity as well. But I know you mentioned like Mark Beal's class and also this role that really prepared you for a full-time role in communications. But was there like a particular turning moment or defining experience in your career that really kind of let you know that this was something that you wanted to pursue or like an experience that you had?
Yeah, absolutely. My shout out again goes to Mark Beal. So I came into Rutgers knowing that I liked to communicate as a freshman, and I took the Communications 101 class. And I said, okay, I'll do public relations, even though I didn't really know what it was, but I was like, that's okay, I'll figure it out along the way. Um, and then as I went throughout the degree and took some of the higher classes, eventually there was an opportunity to go visit a public relations agency, Coin PR, based in, I believe, Parsippany, New Jersey. And so I call it a little field trip. We all got on a school bus, and Mark Beal took us up. And that was my first real experience of seeing who works at an agency, what even is an agency, what were the different types of clients, the different types of industries and sectors. So that was really like formative to my career. I would say a turning point, and this is my other shout out to the career services, was finding my internship at Taft Communications at the time. I was graduating undergrad. I was still part of the master's program, so I wanted to have a job for the summer.
Mhm.
Um, and I was looking for internships, some type of communications, public relations, and I found Taft actually on the Sky Career Board. So I
Oh,
always plug the Sky Career Board because that's how it kickstarted my career pretty much. And so because of that, career board posting, I started my internship at Taft Communications, and almost 3 years later now, I'm a part of Taft as well. Granted, in the meantime, we got acquired, which was a huge opportunity as well for me, which was awesome. But it was really crazy how, one little click on that Sky Career Board resource, turned me here almost 3 years later with a full-time job and everything like that. So it was really awesome.
wow, that's amazing. I'm actually like working on the career board like within Sky, so it's great to see that that was like something that was
I
beneficial.
always promote it. It's my
Yeah.
favorite.
It's definitely like a really great resource, especially just like for internship searching or even like post grad, like early career opportunities. So it's definitely a great resource. But I wanted to ask, I know you were talking about that field trip that you went on,
Mhm.
kind of visiting the agency. I kind of wanted to ask, like, what do you think maybe students don't realize about kind of working within that kind of environment or like about agency life that might be different from like other career sectors?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So I think the most important thing that I would say to know about agency life, depending on the agency, obviously the size and the quantity of it, you might have a smaller place, so it might be a little bit slower, but it is typically a fast-paced, moving environment. I think I somewhat knew that going into it, but wasn't completely, confident in it. It's fast moving, it's a lot of multitasking, and things can get pulled, and fires need to be put out in different directions. So sometimes you can be working on a press release in the morning, but then an urgent client need comes in and you have to completely pivot. So I think being mindful and understanding of how your brain and how you work as an individual is super important because in an agency life you need to be able to like switch directions very quickly of I need
Right.
to pivot and go help my client with this crisis, and once that's solved I can go back and then I have a timely deliverable that's due by the end of the week, so I need to do this today in order. So also learning how to like prioritize your like workload is super important, and being organized is very critical as well.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I feel like having that self-reflection and knowing like how well you're able to balance things is definitely very important, especially when you're working in such a fast-paced environment like you described. But I know you developed so many different skills. Like you mentioned, you took Communications 101, and then of course you took higher level courses throughout undergrad and your master's degree. And also just knowing how to be flexible within the workplace likely taught you a lot of skills. So I was wondering how you kind of balance those technical and soft skills and how you kind of develop them over time within your role.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I think I like to describe myself as a sponge and I like to absorb as much information as possible. So regarding, the technical skills, if I did something some way and my coworkers or teammates give me some feedback on how to improve that, I really take that to heart. I don't see it as like a critic or a critique of my work. I see that as an opportunity to get better and more experience. So I definitely lean on learning from my other teammates and coworkers. And then my soft skills, I think, came from me. This sounds silly, but kind of came from me as a person. I'm very like outgoing. I like to communicate. I like to speak with people. So I think that's kind of where those skills came from. So it is an interesting dynamic to try and balance, but I think I do it successfully.
Yeah, that's true. I think playing on like your innate like skills and like personality traits definitely can help you a lot in your career. And I know like from what you described, it definitely like guided you towards working in communications and like that public facing like personable sort of role. So that's definitely very interesting. But I was also wondering what kind of maybe obstacles you encountered in your career or even like during your undergraduate times or during your master's program, like interning, and how you kind of overcame those obstacles.
Yeah, so I think a lot of times I underestimated how much I was taking on at the time. When I was partaking in my master's program, I was enrolled full time as a student. I was working two part-time jobs, one of them being the graduate assistant for Sky Careers, and then the other one being part-time at Taft Communications. So that pretty much equals out to be a full-time role. So it was 40-hour weeks, school, which is pretty much full time, and then also trying, navigate the college, campus life as well and being included with friends. So that was definitely a big obstacle for me to take on. It was, get up, travel and commute down to Trenton because I was based in New Brunswick, so that was about a 45 minute to an hour drive. Work the 9 to 5, come back, travel home, and then, sit down and do some of my assignments. So it was well worth it, and I was so happy to accomplish that at the end of it. But it definitely was a difficult time. I really had to stay on my toes. I had to stay organized, not only with my client deliverables, but as well as my school assignments and things like that. Sometimes I would take, and people might think I'm a little crazy for this, but I would take, my lunch breaks and sit in the lunchroom with my coworkers and chit chat, but I would be doing a discussion post off to the side because I knew that I had a lot of things to manage at once.
Yeah.
Granted, it was well worth it, and I'm so happy because I completed my master's degree. I was a part of the 4+1 program. So I started it my senior year and I finished it 1 year after graduating. So that was a big goal. Thank you. That was a big goal of mine, and it was quite the obstacle to take on. But like I said, well worth it. And I think too, I learned to balance a lot of things because going into the master's program the summer before my full year into it, I worked two different internships, another job, and also took a summer class. So I wasn't unfamiliar to the process of multitasking and juggling a lot of things at once, but I think that was a little bit of a doozy, but it was well worth it. And I think it's just important to, stay on task, keep your eye on the end game and or your eye on the prize, and it, comes out worth it on the other end.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And I feel like a lot of students now are kind of like juggling a lot. And I know you kind of like quickly transitioned into full-time work after studying. But
Hmm.
of course, like what you said, it definitely like worked out in the end. But I was kind of wondering like what advice would you give to students or even professionals that are looking for different opportunities now and might be juggling a lot as well? Like, was there anything that you specifically did that helped you a lot during your job search? Like time of job searching or just any like advice that you'd like to give.
Yeah, I love giving advice, which that sounds a little weird, but I love giving advice and giving back to the Rutgers community. I think I learned that during my time at Rutgers when I was able to, throughout the master's program, throughout the School of Communications, so many times they brought back, real world professionals to tell their time. So now it's exciting to be one of those people on the opposite end as, like a young worker in the environment right now. So I think one of my biggest advice would be to try new things and let new doors open. Um, I started as a healthcare intern at Coin PR. I had no healthcare experience, but I was like, I'm eager to just get an experience, and I figured that would work out. And my experience as a healthcare intern translated to my experience at Taft, where they had some healthcare clients, which was very transferable, which was awesome. But also the skills that I learned there was super transferable. And then at the same time, I was had experience working for a pickleball company, and now I'm working on German wines and Spirit Halloween and healthcare companies. So I think leaving the door open to new opportunities is one of my biggest things because it's important to, you may have something that you're really focused on and you really want to get to, but at the same time, new doors might open along the way that can get you to that end result. So I think, all my experiences that I've done now will lead me to something bigger and better eventually at some point. Whether that's a bigger and better client, a different opportunity, a job, or something like that. I think all doors lead to something new and you gain experiences, whether they're good or bad, it still is, learning and teaching you in different moments.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I feel like there's so many different domains where, you're working in like different sectors, but you're still at the end of the day like learning the same skills. And I think that's something that's really important. And it's great that you were able to like take full advantage of that. And kind of just like diversify your skill set, even if it wasn't like in an industry that you like initially considered. So that's really great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one more thing I would add too is it's so important to network, which I'm sure multiple people have said before. I have gained so many different, connections and opportunities throughout my Rutgers community, especially tapping on, some of your classmates that sit right next to you or someone that's on the discussion board with you
Mhm.
or one of your professors. Like there are so many opportunities that, I was speaking about different doors opening. You have no idea what doors they can open for you. I worked as an intern and I got that internship because of Professor Beal and he posted it on the career board. And because of that, I got in touch with her name was Frankie and she was a Rutgers alum and I actually was able to interview her for one of these opportunities. So it really is important, of your community and your network is really important and it's really I really think you should, build on that because it's well worth it because you don't know where it'll come in later on. You might be able to tap into someone in a couple of months or in a year or two and say, "Hey, I, met you here. I listened to you speak here. Could you get me or could I learn more about XYZ, which I think is really cool. I usually come back to Rutgers to speak at some of Professor Beal's classes, and I always tell students, and even here now, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm eager, to help and to, somehow further along someone else's career journey. So I think, that's my second advice too, I guess, that you didn't really ask for, but that's my second advice of, really network and connect with people because you never know, where it could lead you.
Yes, that was great and right on the question. I feel like networking is definitely extremely important, like you mentioned. But I feel like Sky students are doing like a really great job of taking advantage of those resources and attending different events and kind of just trying to make new connections and things that could just like blossom their careers. So it's great that you're also, like giving back and kind of leveraging your network to help other students at Rutgers. So thank you so much for that advice. And also thank you for taking the time to speak with us today because I know students will definitely really appreciate and value hearing about your career journey and the different sort of experiences that shaped your path. So thank you so much for your time.
Of course. Thank you so much, Princess, for having me. I appreciate it.